She is a executive protection agent, private investigator. She's out there doing her thing. And she's also a social media expert, has her own talk show and all of this. So, she's well aware of our upcoming seminar. And we said, well, let's do a podcast. Let's go ahead and put this out to everyone, because this is going to be a very special seminar. The last one I had was back in 2018, as you guys know. And with 2019 rolled around, 2020, and this COVID situation, I decided I wasn't going to do it around that time because of COVID-19. But now in 2021, things are starting to kind of mellow out a bit. So I decided to have it. The other thing is that we lost our good brother, Guy Wimper, Master Guy Wimper. You guys remember Guy, who came out, and he was in a very bad, horrific car accident, and it took his life. And I want to do a very special tribute to him at this upcoming seminar. And we definitely need to do that. We lost a good brother before his time, and we need to honor him. So I'm going to do something special for him at the seminar. And then, of course, we also have a special guest, Steve Mohammed. I'm sure you guys know of Steve Mohammed, founder of the BKF, Black Karate Federation. He's going to be our special honored guest. He will be there. So a lot of big things happening at this one, okay? And I'm giving out some special awards to grandmasters, and just a lot of things going on. You got to give roses. When Guy passed away, I said, you know what? We have to give the roses out to those that we love and that we admire,
that are living,
that have really put in the work now while we're alive. You understand what I'm saying? And this is something that I want to do. I want to give you guys your roses. I want to do something special at this seminar, because we could be here today and gone tomorrow.
Absolutely.
And we're going through some crazy times.
Yeah.
Wow, this country is going through some crazy things. So anyway, that's all I want to say on that. I
just want to add also, during COVID-19, we also lost Professor from Sanukas, what's his name? Cleveland.
Oh, Robinson.
Robinson, exactly.
Roger that.
Also.
Roger that. Cleveland Robinson, good friend of mine. Robinson. Yeah, we did.
Yeah. And Papa San Conti also was one too. Actually, they went right 2 weeks before each other.
Papa San.
Yeah, and the tragedy is that I moved from where I was. Now I'm in Loganville. Right now I'm in Washington D.C. I'm heading back home tonight. I was here working for a couple of days, but Papa San, I saw him actually like about 3 or 4 days before he passed away. I mean, It really hit me hard.
Yeah.
Brother Hines, what are you doing in D.C.? I'm in Maryland.
Well, actually, I'm a DOD consultant.
Okay.
And so my office is here in Washington, D.C., but normally I stay between either Washington or Virginia. It all depends on where I'm going to go when I'm up here. A lot of times I'm at the Navy Surface Warfare Center. So that's in Dahlgren. So I'm running between there, and I'm in Maryland quite a bit. I was in Maryland yesterday at Fort Meade. So I'm all over the board. Anywhere where these military bases are, I can be there at any given time.
When we were talking about COVID, we lost a lot, and the names are tremendously long. It's too long, right? Mm-hmm. And we know as protection artists, positive life givers, teachers of life, that your life can be taken in a matter of seconds, right? Like Dr. Holyfield said, right? It can be gone in an instant. And people say, well, don't you do that as a martial artist, as a protection agency? No, we are protectors of life. We're the sheepdogs of life, right? We're there to help you understand how to understand what beautiful and what glorious your life is. And then like we were talking to Miss Tracy, is that a lot of people don't know how to service life. means to service life means you have to give to life, not take from life. And as martial artists, as people who are working in dedication, we serve life. We don't serve ourselves. This is not about ourselves. This is about our higher self, which is all the universe and all of creation, all of God's people. This is why we do what we do. I mean, it is not about, it's a service industry. We are here to serve you and to teach you, not to take from you.
Right.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, you know, to add on to it, you know, I always say that most of the time when you run across guys, particularly of our stature, who have been in the martial arts for quite some time, the very way in which they redefine themselves, and we all come from all types of walks of life. Some of us probably may be better off than others, but nonetheless, when it comes to the martial arts, there's always been some type of an abstract equal racial auctioneer in some kind of sense that push individuals and auction them off based on their abilities and how they redefine themselves. And their redefining of ourselves have basically been the cornerstone of conversation that we have with other folks to help them. And this is how we usually move other individuals in a positive direction. That's through our training. And it's really, really amazing. A lot of times people constantly come up to me and they say, well, look, when is enough enough? I say, what do you mean by that? And they say, well, when is enough martial arts enough martial arts? When have you studied enough that, you know, that you're proficient? Well, for me, it's a way of life. And kind of like with all my students too, it's a way of life. This is what we do. We, I mean, you'd be surprised. I mean, regardless whether it's my work and even my family, they all are involved in some kind of way in the martial arts. And at work, a lot of times people come to me and they say, hey, I know who you are now. I said, what do you mean? They said, well, you're this and you're that. And I said, we saw it. We know that you do martial arts. It's a gift. And it's a gift. It's an ability, but it's a gift that, like, some folks basically are the recipients of gifts that come from nowhere. This is a gift in which we literally have to define ourselves, work really hard to get to where we are. But once we get there, we're able to take that information, that knowledge, and share it and mold other individuals. And I know I look back and I look at a lot of students in which I train, and I look how they're giving it back. And I always say to myself, it will really be awesome if everybody, or maybe 25% of the country, and Dr. Holyfield, you mentioned this a moment ago about the country, about where it's going. Let's say, for example, maybe an eighth of the country was doing martial arts, and they were going out proliferating that knowledge, proliferating that way of being, that way of redefining and stuff like that. It definitely would make things a lot better off, make the country a lot better off. And that's what I feel that we do. And Dr. Dyer, in regard to what you had mentioned about the life and about being holistic in terms of this, I totally agree with you. I can't think of any senior martial artists, and I mean, there must be some, maybe I'm not in those circles, but I can't think of anyone who is not moving in the right direction and who have not imparted some positive wisdom to some others to basically jettison them forward.
You know, going back to off of what you said, Dr. Hines, here, you know, when people ask that question, when is it enough? That almost hurts my heart. And I'll really preface it this way. Why is there so much thing as too much sunshine and too much moon? Is there, I mean, I don't understand how you going to give a compilation of I'm living too much. Wow. Because if you're going to ask me why when is there too much, then are you putting a timeline on your marriage, on your relationship with your children, on the love you have for another human being? That's really what you're asking me when you ask that question. And so I like to turn it back on them. I say, what is something that you're passionate about? I don't care what it is. And I can ask you the same question. When is it too much? And they'll say, well, I'm really passionate about it. Okay, but that's not what I asked you, because you asked me the same question. You didn't ask me about my passion. You asked me when it was too much. Let me ask you this way. Do you love Christ? Okay, when is loving Christ too much?
Hey, Dr. Taylor. Sorry, guys. I just got Dr. Taylor in.
Hey, Dr. Taylor, what you doing, brother?
Hey, how you
Hi,
doing?
Dr. Taylor.
How you guys doing, man?
Yes,
Doing
sir.
well,
Good to see you. There he is.
Hey, all right, all right. Yeah,
We
I
got-
kind of figured this thing out for a minute. Took me a few minutes.
That's because you old.
I told him if he didn't figure it out, I was going to come do some martial arts on him.
I know that's right.
We got the Fantastic Four in the house now, so we're good.
Hey, you know it. That's 100. Yeah. Hey,
We got about 1 minute, guys. Everybody get yourselves wrapped up and ready. Get ready to start about 1 minute. I like to be on time.
Oh, yeah.
and
So,
Dr.
I
Dyer,
don't know exactly what you guys are looking at, or if you're on your computers or what have you. However, the broadcast is going to be public. There's going to be over on my right-hand side, there's going to be some questions that may come up. However, I'll be the gatekeeper for those. We're not going to have any nonsense. If people want to ask sensible questions about martial arts, I'll let those questions be posted on the screen. You all will see them and you can answer them accordingly. And I know you guys know the rule of thumb when it comes to leadership. So it doesn't matter who answers the question. We just want to make sure that we give them, what they're looking for. And if they have any questions, feel free to promote your businesses, what you're doing. If you're having classes, regarding martial arts, and if you want to get children involved, please feel free to promote what you do. It's now 2:30. We're going to go live in a minute. And I'll have this on Facebook. I'll be doing some things in the interim. So I'll be asking you guys to do something while I won't be just staring at my other phone to make sure other broadcasts is being sent out to everyone, okay? Here we go. I'll do the intro. We are now live. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to Positive Vibes. I have the Fabulous Four here. I can't even say it's the Fabulous Four. These are some grand masters. These are honorable grand masters who are professional at what they do. I have to my left, maybe to your right. I don't know exactly what you're looking at, but I have Dr. Dyer here. I have Dr. Holyfield. I have Dr. Taylor and Dr. Hines. Look at all these doctors, and they are handsome, I must say, and they are also great with their hands in martial arts. We're going to talk about martial arts today. We're going to talk about the do's of martial arts, the don'ts of martial arts. We're going to talk about what it means and how it can benefit you, ladies, men, and your children. So I'm going to let Dr. Holyfield take it from here. He is my leader. He is the head of this whole seminar that's going on in September, which these great doctors, grandmasters will be a part of. Don't take it away, Doc.
Well, thank you, Tracy, and I want to thank you for having us. No credit to myself. I've got to say I'm on stage here with some of the top martial artists, not only in this country, but in the world. What you're looking at here are the old school grandmasters. We are grandmasters from back in the 60s. We are the real deal. And I'm sure my brothers can attest to that, okay? And we're honored to be here. We want to share some knowledge with you. And we also want to promote our upcoming Take No Prisoners Close Quarter Combat Seminar and Gathering of the Grand Masters that will be held September 18th, 2021 at the Hilton Hotel, the Doubletree by Hilton Hotel in Atlanta. We'll talk a little bit about that a little bit more as we go on. But again, we are proud to be here. Thank you for having us. And again, I want to thank my brothers that are on the stage with me right now.
Amen. It's truly, I don't know, but people don't realize I'm really excited. I've met these gentlemen in person. They are truly critiqued into what they do. Dr. Dyer, I'll go to you next, and then we'll go to Dr. Hines, and then we'll go to Ricky Taylor. I'm ready to do some karate right now, but I'm going to hold back on that. I'm going to let you guys. Dr. Dyer, you're next. Go ahead.
I love being a part of a family. And that's probably the one thing that martial arts has done for me for a 4 decades and change, is that it brought brothers and sisters together to be the sheepdogs of sheep. And as our world changes from a lot of passive, apathetic people who are sick And we said this a little bit off air. If COVID did not put you on notice that you need to start something to save your life, whether it be financial, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, we cover that in martial arts. We cover all that in martial arts because that's what we do. It's not just our hands and our feet, right? It's about all of it. It's about our internal, it's about our external. So I'm so glad that that's what we do, that's what we teach, and that's what we bring to life. It's a blessing. It is a true blessing.
So, Dr. Dyer, there are so many things that you've done in your life, in your lifetime, when it comes to what you do in regarding, you are a certified personal trainer, Hall of Fame member of the American Federation of Combined Arts. You also are the you do karate, do Muay Ryu Federation. You do dojo. You do all of it. Talk about some of the things you have done and how you have embraced life with martial arts and how people that you have taught have embraced what you do and what you've taught them.
It's to me, it's a, you know, I think for anything from being a forever student, and this is what I mean by forever student, it is to learn from the environment that you're in, learn from your seniors that you're under, learn from your brothers and sisters who you're next to. Martial arts gives you the open mind to open up your heart and open up your passion to listen. That's the key, to listen. The awareness that keeps you alive is to be aware, to understand who you are, what you are, and where you are. If that's what martial arts can open that up, now you're able to listen, learn, share, and love. Because a lot of those things are closed off. So as I'm teaching, whether it be physics, cellular biology, or neural mind understanding, because I love neurology, it's about understanding the science of living, not dying. The understanding of science of living is to put forth yourself in life. Martial arts has done that. It's also saved life, being in the military, being on the streets, and being a father, being a husband, being a dad, being a friend. You can save life if you understand, again, who you are, what you are, and where you are, and what you can do. And if you don't know how to do it, you raise your hand and say, how do I learn how to do? And that's what I teach my students. Ask yourself the question, what can I do? Not what am I able to do, what else can I do? So I think it has helped. It's helped me with my education. It's helped me with kids with ADD, HDD. It's helped get kids off medication. It helps people with mental illness. It's helped people understand what you are and where you can go with yourself. Tracy, I think Tracy froze. She did. She froze on us. But we still got it. You know.
Okay, Tracy, you froze on us. Go ahead, Dr. Dyer.
So one of the things I think people are afraid of is being afraid. And fear has caused more lives, as most of us has been in combat. Fear will cost you your life. And it's not so much, fear doesn't make heroes. Fear makes you dangerous because you get so afraid, you get so frozen. Most people think of fear as a fight or flight. It's also frozen. A lot of fear freezes people, right? And that neurotransmitter, that frontal lobe action where you do not know how to compensate the action around you, freezes you because you're not comfortable. No one freezes in the rain, automatically they put their hands up. So if you learn how to react like you react to rain, you would never freeze. But that takes lessons. That takes education. That takes being taught. It doesn't take watching YouTube or reading a book. And I didn't want to curse because I was going to say reading a damn book, because most people think they could just learn by watching. No, we are the ambassadors of the living existence. And we have always been the ambassador of living existence. That's why throughout history, right, Dr. Holyfield, throughout history, everyone has gone to the martial artist, the person who lives through nature and the cultivation of the universe, because that's who we study, of how to exist and how to combat warfare, because we study it all. You want to talk about that history, Dr. Holyfield, about how that puts together and all the protection arts and the work?
Well, absolutely. And you have to, and there's a lot of people that really don't understand. And I think we're going to show a video at the end of this broadcast, but the history, when you go deep and deep and deep into the history of the arts, so to the martial arts, it goes way, way back into our African heritage.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people don't know that, you know, but it goes, we are the creators. We are the creators of the arts, of the fighting arts, of the martial arts, you know, and we are also the educators, you know, so it is important for us to keep that knowledge flowing, you know, and for the younger generation to seek knowledge from those who have the wisdom, you know. As we get older, and you know, you're looking at least close to 200 years of collective martial arts training between all of us grandmasters on stage, you know. And even though you may see some, I don't even like to call them gray hairs. You know what I like to call them? Wisdom highlights. we have wisdom highlights. This is wisdom that you're looking at. Okay, this is wisdom.
Sorry, guys, we had a little glitch. I'm back.
Say again?
I said we had a little glitch. I'm back.
Roger that. We're glad you're back. No, again, I'm just piggybacking off of what Dr. Dyer said in the history. Again, we're going to go more and more into the history of the martial arts. I think there's a video that will be shown near the end. But go ahead. I'm going to turn it back over to our host, Tracy.
Sorry, guys. You know, this is technology. Who knows what happened, but we're not going to worry about that. We just know that we're here and designed to do what we're supposed to do. So whether you didn't see it today, you can always go to valingsta.com, register for the close quarter combats and meet these guys in person. I'm sure they'll have their books. They'll have their pictures to autograph and to teach you on a one-on-one. This is probably why it happened, because you know what? You're not supposed to see us here on Facebook. You're supposed to see us at the Marriott in Atlanta on September 18th. Also, Dr. Holyfield is also an author of 2 books, as well as, you know, just a lot of knowledge, a wealth of knowledge. Ricky has a lot of things going on with him. Leroy Hines, he'll be back with us. Let's continue on, guys, with the show.
You know, when we'll probably end up going to Dr. Ricky right here. But when you talk about wisdom highlights, I actually grew this because we can't beat students anymore. Because in this new generation, we can't hit them with that cane stick. So I had to grow this because I'm like, you got to be kidding me! I got to tell you this one more time.
Well, you know, a lot of people they don't train the way, gentlemen. You know, they don't train today. They don't train the way that we did back in the day. I'm talking about the 60s. Back then, the way that we trained. You won't find very many instructors training that way because of liability issues, students getting hurt, the instructors getting hurt and all that. But we, you know, when I tell you, we did the real deal, okay, which formed us into who we are today, okay? And it was the real deal. But I want to turn it over to Dr. Taylor and then over to Dr. Hines.
Yeah, you know, hey, how you guys doing again? But I like to say, you know, what you were saying about like they don't do it like we used to back in the days, you know, back during the time James Earl Matosi and William K. Child, you know, when they was into the Kempo system as well, they always said back in the days, if it wasn't no blood shown, there wasn't no training. They felt like they didn't have class, you know. So, you know, in this day and time now, we have to kind of modify things, but I am so glad that we are able, as doctors, that we can either take it to different levels, you know, to benefit the person as far as the laws. But, you know, we know in our heart that martial arts not being taught the true art like it should be. You know, so that's why it's so good to come to these close quarter combat training so you can learn the true meaning of martial arts and learn how to actually train the way that we should and be able to perform the art as it should be. You know, I mean, because there's a lot of hidden stuff behind the martial arts that a lot of teachers don't even know, they can't even teach because of the fact of the liability and stuff. But when you come to the seminar, you can learn a whole lot of stuff.
Right, and I think it's important also, Dr. Taylor, that we draw the distinction between the traditional art form of a martial art and then the practical, let's say, combat application to the threat that we face today. You understand what I'm saying? Because a lot of the traditional, you guys know what I'm talking about. Back in the day, we learned, you know, the outside, the traditional outside block, high block, and all that.
Yeah.
But what you have to do is you have to be able to, the system evolves. It evolves with the current threat. So when you're in actual combat, the traditional form gives way to something a little bit more practical. You understand what I'm saying? Where a regular outside block this way or an inside block this way may be something like this. It may be a sweeping motion that's a lot faster, and it's something that's more conducive to a real world attack and getting in there quick, getting in and getting, you know what I'm saying? And that's what you will learn when you come to this seminar. Again, the grandmasters, and there's other grandmasters that are not on this show, and masters that will be there as well. And the object of this seminar is to give everyone who comes to this seminar a chance to spend time with the grandmasters on what they're teaching. You understand? So the students will have ample amount of time to rotate around to the different grandmasters and masters and learn their art, learn their concepts, learn their systems. Something else that's going to be unique about this seminar is I will have my chief medical officer there as well. So we will be giving you a breakdown of what your strike is going to do to the human body, a medical analysis of what's going to happen internally to these organs and these bones that we break and what have you. Okay. So again, we're getting very detailed. We're getting very in depth with this. This is not your average seminar. Okay.
Right.
So we're going to show you what you need to survive. And these are tested techniques. I'd like to move over to Dr. Hines. You're back with us, sir.
Yeah, I've had a couple of technological glitches here, but I was with you all along, and I want to pick up about the evolution of the martial arts. You mentioned Dr. Holyfield. You know, I grew up in Philadelphia. I was actually born in Baltimore, if you want to say that, because I was only there for a short period of time before my parents moved me to Philadelphia, where I spent the next 16 of my years. Then the next 20 some years in the New Jersey, New York area before moving to Atlanta. But early on, I realized a high premium to be placed on one who can weaponize the martial art training that you get in the dojo, dojang, or kun, or wherever it is that you train. I grew up in a situation where there was lots of gangs in Philadelphia. I lost a couple of brothers in the street. I knew nothing but to be hard in the martial arts. But somewhere right around the age, like about 15, 16 years old, I woke up and I realized, I said, hold on for a moment. I've done this judo and I've done this taekwondo, this Korean martial art. I was able to go down and fight guys at Joe Frazier's who were boxers and be able to hold my own against them doing this stuff. And I was able to protect myself to some extent in the street. So I realized if I could achieve these goals, or they weren't goals, they were just things I was doing, I figured I could take the same energies and apply it to other things. So the same energies, I'd start looking at, well, 16 years old, I'm in school. I grew up, as I said, I'm in Philadelphia, then later on North New Jersey, both horrific places to be, especially as far as education. So I start focusing on my education. I said to myself, if a book can be read, why can't I read it in like a month or a week? And then later on, a couple of weeks, later on a week, later on days. So I start focusing on that level, start developing myself. But in the process, I start learning more and more and more about martial arts. It made me want to leave Philadelphia, go to North New Jersey. I was seeking out some instruction at that time. I found Kareem Abdullah there. I didn't go train with him. I wound up actually going to the Goshishan system, in which right now I'm kind of like one of the heads of it. And but that wasn't enough. I said to myself, I could keep pushing on. I could reach other heights. I went in the military, got good grades, 82nd, came out of the military. Then I went on to do going on to college, using the martial arts, pushing myself. I'm saying to myself, if I could do these push-ups, if I could do these calisthenics, these forms, these biomechanics that I normally do with punching, kicks, throws, and locks, there's no way in the world I can't learn advanced mathematics. There's no way I can't do this or do that. So I pushed on. And before I knew it, I found myself traveling abroad, living in Russia, living in Africa, living in lots of places. I've been to places where some folks don't even know even exist, like Ossetia and right outside of Georgia, the Republic, one of the former Soviet republics. So I've been to places where a lot of folks would never even imagine going, but I had a chance to practice martial arts everywhere I went. I had a chance to teach martial arts wherever I went, but like you, Dr. Dyer, constant student of the environment wherever I'm at. Learning. But that early on training in terms of the weaponization of the martial arts I do never for 1 second evaded me. I never took time off in my life. I don't know what it's like to say I'm burned out. I just had surgery, when was it, about a couple of weeks ago on my shoulder. So I went to my doctor this morning, and that's another reason why I'm up here, because my doctor is up here in the Washington, D.C. area. He said, well, I already know that you were going to be okay. So I showed him a Carenza that I did like this past Sunday with 1 stick. And he told me, he said, this is phenomenal that you came back that quick. That's only because I understand my core.
Yeah.
But what you were hitting on, Dr. Dyer, about understanding your core, about who you are, and what you represent in the martial sciences. I know for a fact that through practicing the martial arts, and basically bringing it into the modern era in terms of thinking and applying that template of martial science on today's world. If a person can embrace those ideals, you'd be surprised about what they can achieve. The only problem is that it's hard to get through, because most people, we live in a world of Twitter, but folks only write like, 30 or 40, I don't tweet, but I think about 40 characters or something like that. So there's no real need for anybody to be really articulate in anything. And that goes back to a conversation we had earlier about someone once asked me, when is enough enough? I guess I can understand it, why they're thinking that way, because their scope in terms of everything is not all that broad. Because like, you're not tweeting, you're communicating in such a small veneer of projection that people are getting, so they're not getting the full who they are. They don't know who the full they are. So what it is that you get a situation where nothing is really totally fully done. And so, or put another way, people are not fully developed. But the martial sciences provide an avenue to be able to achieve that. And that is what I normally do with my students. I use that as a means to help folks redefine themselves, help them revisit and develop, look at things that they do, look at things they don't do, look at things that they should do. And for me too, it's a constant struggle. Every single day I'm learning something every day, but every single day I'm also struggling to be the best I can be. A lot of times I look around, and some of the guys that I came up with over the years from different systems and what I've studied, they're displaced or they're no longer training. And they say, I don't do that anymore. And I'm like, how could they say that? Did I do something wrong? Did I take this wrong? No, I didn't take it wrong. It was a way of life from the beginning. And it is still a way of life, and it will continue to be a way of life. Folks who do train with me, they're not many, but those who do come, they stay. Because the reason why, it's a rough ride.
It's rough.
I'll be honest, and the reason why is because I require so much of them. That's only because I want them to be the best. Yeah. They need to be better than I am. And not only my students, that goes to my family also. I remember one time, and I teach at George Mason too. I teach finance and economics there. But I remember, like, my daughter one time told someone, they said he knows a whole lot about this here. And he said, hey, well, just imagine, I have to wake up with him every day. And I said, what do you mean? She said, Dad, she said, it's kind of hard not to know that stuff from being around me. And that's because that is what I push. And I really push excellence or a higher maximum of being at every level possible. And that is one of the things in which I've learned in martial arts. And that's what I'm hearing from all you brothers up here on this call, which is really great. As I mentioned before, I have never met anybody at the highest level who have been at that pinnacle of development in the martial arts who is not there in some form or fashion. And, you know, I run across a lot of superficial individuals, don't get me wrong. People who are crazy over belts and like this rank and they want to be called that. Anybody who knows, it takes so much to be where you should be when you call yourself a grandmaster. I don't take that lightly, but like now, everybody's a grandmaster.
Well, you know what, Dr. Hines, I gotta key on a couple of things, brother. I remember being in the military. I graduated second gun out of my sniper class. And we had to go through all this training. And I remember being a young boy when you got hit with that shanai because your punch wasn't right, because your ab core wasn't strong, right?
That's right.
Right? You get popped with that shanai. You're like, pow! You're like, ah! Right? Your body shakes. Here's the thing. When you go to your weapon of choice, and you target your weapon, your breath's got to be right, right? Your mind's got to be clear for you to target and acquire and fire. There are two different things. But when you're a martial artist, you can acquire fire, right? A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people, they acquire, and I'll be like, what are you waiting on? Well, I got to acquire. What's taking you so long? We're all dead. We're gone. Now, you better acquire and fire. And a lot of times when they acquire fire, they're off. And that's because their breath's not right and their mind's not right. And the reason why their mind's not right, because they haven't been training, right? We train more of our cerebral cortex than any other function on the planet.
That's right.
On the planet. There's not one training outside of martial arts that trains the cerebral cortex together with the physical form. If someone can come up with me and challenge me and says, well, I do, I'm like, you tell me, because I want to know. Contact Tracy. Let us know, because there is none.
Yeah.
Well, Dr.
Yeah,
Dyer,
just mind the body as one.
well, Dr. Dyer,
That's right.
I want to get on this subject in regarding with bullying being one of the problems that are in society with our children, and you know their self-esteem and things like that. That's at a low, very low right now. Tell us, and anyone can answer this. Tell us how martial arts affects children's mental state of being in their confidence.
Well, I would say that anytime when you have children and when children are involved and they have the ability to recognize their own accomplishments, even if it's shooting marbles, and you feel good that because you know how to shoot marbles pretty well, and you kind of like develop some self-esteem from that. Just alone, and this is just an example, but it's kind of like anything. We in America, we always look around at individuals and we love basketball players, we love all those kind of things. A lot of times, young kids are coming up today, and they are. I'm trying to find the correct way to say this here. They're not getting this kind of. They're not getting the kind of right kind of instruction or way of how to be from their parents in terms of just understanding who they are.
Right.
A lot of times kids are looking at TV, a lot of times they're seeing certain things and they're just looking. They're not basically pulling and they're not really shaping. So when they get out there, a lot of times with other kids, and especially kids that maybe have some kind of more physically endowed or something like that, and they want to try to impose their will on them or try to pick on them maybe because of their gender or whatever. These are the kind of things that I feel that they need to basically start at the home in terms of good parenting. And then martial arts itself can reinforce those values. Because number one, as I mentioned before, growing up in the city of North Philadelphia, I'll be honest with you, I was totally like, sometimes I wonder how I made it. I mean, I didn't feel good about myself. people did bully me. Even though I felt that I could beat them, I wasn't going to fight them because they were calling me names, calling my mom's name or anything like that. But I was bullied. But I do know I could have opened up a can if I wanted to, but my dad told me that learning judo is a thing where you got to reserve yourself only to the left, only if you have to. But and it affected me to some extent. But what it is, the more I trained, the more I developed some type of strength and the more self-esteem came. Hard training equal sort of like equal up some degree or some percentage of self-esteem accompanied that. So what happened is that through martial arts, I truly believe that a parent can put their kids in most martial art programs. Most teachers are aware of bullying now. I mean, it's one of the main things that most karate schools do, kind of like address. Self-esteem, self-awareness, self-assurance, all these things right here seem to follow suit. And I think it goes a long way in terms of developing a kid.
Awesome. Now that we're talking, you had spoke about, as far as like using your forces and things like that. Let's get into disparities of force. And anybody can take that. Because people think that, well, I know how to do karate and I'm this high, whatever high, black belt or higher. Let's talk about the disparity of force, using it in the right manner and not being, not allowing it to be used against you as a martial artist.
I'll speak a little bit on that. If you're talking about disparity of force in regards to the legal system, what I'm talking about here, disparity of force meaning unequal. So let's say you have a self-defense situation. We as martial artists going against the average person without the training or skill that we have, there is a disparity of force there. And we have to be careful about that because what we are trained fighters versus an untrained fighter. A person that has knowledge, a wealth of knowledge, years, a lifetime of knowledge on how to defend ourselves going up against the average person. Or from a legal standpoint, the law would look at that as being, well, that's unequal. In other words, we are not justified in the eyes of a legal situation. A person strikes at us and punches at our face doesn't necessarily give us the right to break that person's arm in 4 different places. Okay.
Wait a minute. I got come on. Hold on.
What about one place? What about this one
Right,
place?
that's what I was.
So one place is fine, but what I'm saying is then we start moving into that realm of excessive force and this sort of thing, and letting emotions, our emotions act without the benefit of intellect, if you will. So we got to be very, very smart as far as trained fighters as we are. We have to be very smart out there in the world before we get into a situation with a person. We have to be able to quickly assess it. What is this person's intent? What does it look like they're about to do? And what we can, combat that with. You understand what I'm saying? Because if a person's coming at us with any type of a weapon, that could very well justify us using lethal force, and then it's going to be a wrap after that.
I want to jump on that, and the thing is, one of the things that I would tell people, I said, you better hope I shoot you before I put my hands on you, because one's gonna hurt and one's not. Now the other thing is, when we call disparity of force, because I am a shooter, that's what I am. I will shoot you to put you down. I don't have to kill you. So I also look at the level of training and learning how to hurt you and put you down without killing you. I know how to shoot you and put you down without killing you. So training gives me that option to save your life. That's how I look. That's why I say it's a life-giving. I'm here to protect your life, my life, and the lives around me. That's what training does. Because when you're able to protect someone who is attacking, because let's look at it. If someone is attacking someone, anyone, they're unhealthy. They're mentally unhealthy. I'm not there to assess their mental being, not right now, but I can save your life by putting you down and getting you the help you need. Now, if I was emotionally discarded, I would take your life without regard. Now, that's something a grandmaster or a person who is at a higher level has to take into account. You put your hands on one, you better understand you're taking that into your dreams. We don't forget about this like we throwing out paper. We take this into our psychic, into our cellular development, into our personal lives. So
That's right.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Oh, go ahead, Dr. Hines.
No, I was just gonna say,
We definitely.
like, I agree with you, Dr. Holyfield. You have to be really you have to be smart in regard to this whole thing, and you have to train many scenarios, because the whole point is, a lot of things at times we don't know what we don't know. We're getting out of a car at night, and we're like, somebody is attacking you, and it happens at the speed of speed. I mean, you don't have time to process a whole lot. You just got to do what you got to do, and it may wind up in the death of somebody, and hopefully not the death of the person that's being attacked. So it's so many different variables in there, but these are the kind of things that, as martial arts instructors, we have to be thinking about these. We have to think of these worst case scenarios, and we have to impart it to our students about what could possibly happen. And yes, the legality part, we talk about that. I remember when I was at your function a couple of years ago, Dr. Taylor, that we had some conversations with one of the cops down there. This is a very, very difficult area, because the fact is that when it's on, it's on. You don't know it's on sometimes till you know it's on. And we don't have that time to really be like a cowboy and wing somebody or something like that. You have to do what you have to do. And I've been in situations where, like, some folks tried to stab me over in Russia, in St. Petersburg, Russia of all places. And I'm saying to myself, I could have lost my life on a humbug over there. But the thing about it is that I was lucky enough to basically overcome it and hurt the other guy. And then I had to wind up dealing with the law there, where they wanted money, and I was, because I told them I wasn't going to get them anything, and I was going to call the embassy. But that happened so quick, I didn't have time to really process it. And that's where I say that we have to be smart. We have to teach these things way in advance about what could be and how these things could come about out of nowhere. And like and we can't just sort of like project that, well, in the situation we want to do this, and we want to make sure we don't hurt them in this situation. We want to wing them in this situation, but if we have to kill them in this situation, we don't really get a chance to make those choices under the right or wrong pressure.
Right.
Yeah, I want to piggyback on something that Dr. Hines said. And, I think one of the most basic survival instincts that we have as human beings is self-preservation. Understand what I'm saying? If situational and environmental awareness is going on around us, if we come under attack, self-preservation kicks in, where it's either going to be my life or your life. Right. And we have to be able to quickly assess that. If we're in a dangerous situation like that, and we have to defend ourselves, and it's either you or me, then we have to do what has to be done. And Dr. Hines is correct. Things happen in a split second, and we don't have time to think about it. When it's on, it's on. And then we're going to be, but keep in mind, you're going to be accountable or held accountable for your actions afterwards, after it's all over.
Exactly.
And in this day and age that we're living in social media and video, rest assured you're probably being recorded, video cameras somewhere. All right. So again, all of that comes into play afterwards, but when it's on in that moment, it's on.
Absolutely. I want to talk about what the days that we're living in now. We're living in the days now where there's a lot of gun violence, where people have went far away from, street fighting. It's, people are just pull out and they shoot. And of course, there's a lot of that going on right now. How can we, you guys, that are grandmasters in this martial arts thing, how can we encourage people to go back to their YWCA's, boys clubs, or just those places that are having these classes to learn how to defend themselves when it comes to with their hands and not gun, bring down the gun violence?
Dr. Taylor, go ahead. Dr. Taylor? I think he froze.
Did he freeze? He froze.
Well, to go back to, I think, Tracy, the question is community. I think we lost a sense of community, and I think that's what us as brothers do, as martial artists, as sisters and brothers. It's a community. And I go back to my statement before. We became the sheepdogs of sheep. If we can train the sheep to be a sheepdog, then that community ends up protecting each other, and that's where we denounce violence by practicing the peaceful art. Most people don't know that martial arts is the peaceful way, right? And it's because we honor the way, we honor life. It's not because we are here to harm, we're here to protect life, to give life. So we need to build community. And I think the only way we can build community is to build the person. The only way we can build a person, if we go back to what Dr. Hines says, it starts in the family. And I don't know, and it kind of piggybacks to your original question. These young kids who are being bullied, they don't know who they are. And if they don't know who they are, they will pick up a gun. There is no discernment between picking up the gun and not knowing who you are. Because even us as military people, when you take that oath, and all of us have taken that oath, when you take that oath, it is asking you, you are now part of something within something, right? This is not a gang. This is about service. A gang is selfish. So look at it that way. When you brought into a family, it's about service, not selfishness.
That's a great point. Great point. Now let's talk about the belts, because I know a lot of people think that they're going to go into martial arts, or the first week or two that they learn martial arts, they're going to get a color belt. Let's talk about the belts and how they go up the ranks, if you will, so we can educate some people that are unknowing about the belts and how they go.
I just want to start by saying, the belt situation is simply a way of gauging a person's advancement through the ranks. And that goes way back in history, to whereas way back in the day, there were no colored belts. Okay, you just had a white belt, and you wore that white belt for years and years. And as that belt continued to get soiled and worn over the years, you would walk into a dojo and you would see different shades of white. You would see white, you would see light gray, you would see dark gray, you would see dark black. And this right here was what gauged one's advancement in the arts. So when that belt was almost black and ripped and torn, that person had been in the arts for quite some time. And the black belt itself has lost a lot of its respect over the years, because it has been so commercialized over the years here in the United States, with the different belt colors and the testing fees and the money and all of this. But it has lost a lot of what it used to be, even into the black belt ranks. Third degree black belt. I remember when a first degree black belt, you were almost like a god in the martial arts. A first degree black belt, you had made it. You had made it. Now, third degree, fourth degree, Sensei Sam moves in, and his dojo is up the street from Sensei whoever, and he's a third degree. Well, I'm going to move my dojo here, and I'm going to promote myself to fifth degree. And this sort of thing that is going on. So it's taken a lot of the respect out of the rank itself. I've always said that between white belt and black belt, destination is not as important as is the process of getting there. And the reason I say that is because you have black belts out there. You have black belts out there that can't fight their way out of a wet paper bag. And then you have black belts out there that can fight, but they have no form. Put it this, or you have a person at the black belt and they can fight, but they can't teach.
Exactly.
Okay, so you have different types of black belts out there. Okay, depending on that process that they went through is going to be the end product that you get at the end. You understand what I'm saying? So again, I'm going to hand it over to the other grandmasters on this. There's a lot that can be said.
I'd like to pick up on that. And you're right. I think it was in Japan. I don't think the belt system in karate became relevant not until roughly around 1922, which is only just about 100 years old, really, because all of the Shurite and the Mayate masters, all those guys, they didn't really have belts. It wasn't until I think Funakoshi went to the island of Japan and kind of like borrowed from Kano, who was using a ranking system in judo. Now, when these belt systems start to spread throughout Korea, throughout the whole world, you know, if people found ways of monitorizing these belts, finding ways to say that if you train this long, you get this. I even see online where somebody said, oh, well, to get a black belt takes this many years, the training takes this many years. My philosophy is a little different. It ain't about the belt, it's about the material. And I agree with you, Dr. Holyfield, the process. And basically, that when you say process, I say material. If somebody can style the material that they're being taught, and that material is styled in a way that is highly effective, and basically, to get there, to get that material, you're going to go through the process, and you have to basically be humbled by doing that. So it's not like you basically are just coming out of nowhere and learning this right here, because it takes years and years to perfect things. I mean, a lot of times people, they say that, well, I saw that on YouTube. Go ahead, good luck with that, because you know what? You ain't gonna learn nothing on YouTube. Matter of fact, I laugh at people. I could tell the YouTubers when I see them versus those individuals who basically have movement and have the grace of their movement and have the execution and things like that baked in already. That is the material that you style. That is the material, not much different than some jazz singer that hear maybe from a songbook and pick a jazz record and style that and make it their own, but it's still the same material. And when you have something different than that, and you got somebody who is running off on a tangent, just saying, oh, I'm this right here, because I've been in the martial arts all this long. That's why a lot of times I tell my guys that if you master this, and you've only been studying for like 15 years, and somebody's been studying something like the wrong thing for 50 years, it's of no consequence that that individual is right that with 15 years versus 50, and there's no way of getting around that. That's why the focus got to be placed on that instead of the belt or the rank. I say rank because some systems don't have belts. You know, Capoeira doesn't have a belt, Sabat doesn't have belt, Greek, Gavon, many different martial arts styles. Most of them don't have belts, but they all call themselves some kind of mastery or some kind of ranking as they go up. So it's always about the material. If you look at the material, you won't go wrong, because the reason why it won't be about personality, it won't be about how good someone looks or how sharp their clothes or their gi or their outfit is, or it'll be about the material. It'll be about the effectiveness and is it done right? Is it executed correctly? Does it reach or pass the smell test in terms of being at the mastery or grandmaster level?
You know, I stew over this. I stew over the conversation of belts and McDojos, as we comically call them, because when we were younger, after you learn something, when we were in New York, you go out in the streets and a lot of people will be like, oh, so you came from your karate class, and they throw a punch at you. That's what it was, right? So if you're not learning right, you just got smacked in the mouth. So young, newer people who are working in those classes, they're not putting their education to the test. It's like asking a person who just graduated high school to write an English paper and they don't know how to spell. Well, so what high school did you graduate from? You know, you don't know how to spell. Or that's like reading about surgery and going to the hospital and talking about, let me practice surgery because I learned it on YouTube. Why are you trying to bastardize our passion for your purpose? And that's how I look at it. Don't bastardize my passion for your purpose for profit, because it doesn't work. If you're going to bastardize it, then let me address that. But my passion isn't your profit. I get held back a lot from a lot of you senior brothers saying, Don't go into that dojo to shut it down, because I truly want to lock doors, close up some window shades, and say, let's go.
Wow.
You know, absolutely, absolutely. You know, I think one of the greatest mysteries involving knowledge is knowing enough about a subject to think you're right, but not enough about the subject to know you're wrong. And in short, the more we know or the more we learn, the less we know. You know, and it's important. It's important that the students learn, and that we as instructors impart that knowledge. You know what I'm saying? True knowledge, not just knowledge, true knowledge. You know, and it's up to, there's an old saying, the instructor opens the door, but it's up to the student to walk through it.
I
You
agree.
know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink, just like you can lead a person to knowledge, but you can't make him think.
Exactly.
Okay, so it's really up to the student at that point. We're going to do our job as instructors, but it's up to the student to and the instructor as to how we impart that knowledge, how we deliver that knowledge to our students, and how they connect with us as instructors to receive that knowledge, let it soak in, and then use that knowledge.
Tracy had asked the question. It was part of a bigger question. Yeah, but I ask people, why don't you want to protect your life and loved ones? Why wouldn't you not want to learn? Like to come back into the dojos or to the rec centers to learn, why wouldn't you not want to learn something that could save a life, even your own? Like there's tons of times where couples are walking together, and I look at them and I feel bad for the couples because their lives could be taken like that for a sucker punch, right? We know those sucker punches will be out there. We know a lot of people would take it just because it's comical or they're trying to get hazed in a gang. Life is precious, so why wouldn't you want to protect it? That I'm so baffled by the lack of response from individuals outside of the martial arts community that don't even think about protecting their life. But it's funny, but they have alarms on their cars. They're so concerned about the alarms on their house. And I asked the person, I said, you have an alarm in your car, right? He goes, yes. I said, you have an alarm in your house? He goes, yes. I said, what if I just make you open up your car? Your alarms do nothing. I could just have you open up your house and I can walk into your house. So how's your alarm working for you now when I can make you do what I want you to do because you can't stop me from doing it? So how's your alarm working? But
Hey, Dr. Dye, I want to address this question so people would know if it's their instincts or their gut feeling telling them that they want to go into martial arts. Dr. Dyer, what inspired you to want to go into martial arts?
I didn't have a choice. My dad was a Black Panther and my mother was a civil rights activist, and you will learn to protect your life, period. That's how it started. That's exactly how it started. There was no ifs and buts about it. My dad was coming out of Vietnam. He was a Black Panther in Chicago, and that was it. You will stand strong for your community, for your family, and for yourself. Those are the three things: your community, your family, and yourself. Learn how to protect it, learn how to save it, and learn how to cherish it. That was the drumbeat in my house. That was it. Know who you are, right? Know you are a man in this world. They're trying to take your life, right? We're doing that now. They're trying to take something away from you. They're either trying to take your spirituality, they either try to take your soul, they either try to take your mental capacity, and they could do all that by taking you physically. So if you don't know how to protect yourself physically, how can you ever be mentally learned, right?
Wow. Dr. Hines, not just for you. Dr. Hines, I'll go through all of you guys.
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep it short. I'm just gonna piggyback off the Dr. Dye. Dr. Dye, I didn't know your history with the Black Panthers, and I'm all about that. Okay, that's a whole nother talk show. I will be calling you, my brother, because I want to hear the war stories. That's a whole nother conversation. But we'll talk later.
Okay, so, Dr. Holyfield, how about you? What inspired you to want to get into martial arts?
Well, I was back in the day. I was hyperactive. I believe they called it ADHD. But you have to understand, back in the 60s, they hadn't really diagnosed it back then. I don't think we didn't know what it was. I was just all over the spectrum, all over the place, to the point where my mother had to get a leash to put around me like a dog. It was like a harness type thing. Yeah. And if I wasn't on that leash, I would run. I'd run out in the street. I'd be gone. Don't even mention going into the mall and passing a toy store. I'm gone. I'm gone. So she had to have me on a leash. So I was all over the place, and I was Bruce Lee, I think, was out, and I was fascinated with the martial arts. This is back in the 60s, and I was kicking furniture and pillows and all that stuff. So my long story short, my parents said, we need to put him into something where he can get this energy out. He's all over the place. So my father came home one night, said he found a karate school, took me to the karate school. Remember, I used to watch Kung Fu theater and all this other stuff. Took me to the karate school. I see these kids jumping over belts and doing, it was a wrap. He took me down on a Friday night. I signed up that following Monday, and I've been in it ever since. And this was back in 1967. I was 7 years old.
Wow.
It was a wrap for me after that. And that's what, controlled my aggressiveness, was the martial arts. I was able to control it, temper it down. I was never on any medication, Ritalin and all this other stuff. The martial arts did that for me, and it was a beautiful thing.
Wow. That's great news for those parents who are kind of on the fence about getting their kids on those type of medications. Dr. Taylor, next to you, what inspired you to get into martial arts? He looks like he may be frozen. There you go, Dr. Taylor.
Yeah.
He's having some connection problems, I think.
Yeah.
Dr. Hines, what made you get into martial arts?
All right, my dad trained people that went to the 1960 Olympics in Rome in judo.
Wow.
And so I was kind of like born doing martial arts. But what happened is that the streets of Philadelphia, as I mentioned earlier, it's a high premium place to an individual who could defend himself with the gangs and stuff going on. So what could have been something that I probably could have enjoyed on another level, it actually turned out to be a necessity for me to just know how to defend myself and be able to fight. Later on, when I moved to the Newark, New Jersey, no difference whatsoever. Same thing. So that was it. That's why I think I struggled like early on, like as a teenager, trying to find some other reason for why I would do what I do. And that other reason was to kind of like to make me a better person and to basically give me some type of, if I use a Latin word, raison d'etre, or reason for existence other than just to be able to defend myself on the street. And so I saw it as a means, as a catalyst to push me forward, to be able to achieve things. And that's pretty much like it for me early on. Right now, the reason why I stay in there, as I mentioned before, is because it's a way of life. And almost everything I do is somewhat related to the martial arts in terms, if it's nothing but my level of effort in terms of just doing something. In terms of being in a relationship, same thing. Constantly striving to be the best that I can be. And early on, those things were not all that readily available to me to understand. They became later for me that is what I could do with the martial arts. And that's kind of like what I push now with my students.
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, another question hasn't been asked to me. I know the broadcast has been long, and you guys have gave a lot of information. And let me tell you what it was for me. And you probably gonna laugh. And this goes to what Dr. Dyer was talking about regarding protecting. Now, as a female, going into different states and cities and things like that, I felt like it was something it was necessary for me to have to protect myself, because it's not always that I am with someone else. And if I am with someone else and they don't know how to fight, I know how to do it myself. So I learned how, I went into, and I got into dojo. Let me tell you how I got into dojo. I actually was at a school, it was like a school event for my son, who does martial arts sometimes too. And I signed up for a free dojo class, and I'm like, oh, I'll sign up. You know, what could it hurt? You know, it could be something to add to my life or something that if I don't get it, I just won't do it. So I ended up winning a free dojo class. I think it was like about 4 or 5 months worth of dojo classes. So I liked it, continued on to it, and I moved. And then I went to Atlanta, met Dr. Holyfield, and I was there. I think I met Dr. Dyer and Dr. Hines at a seminar there during executive protection. And I'm looking around like, wow, I need this. I'm in Atlanta. I don't know anybody. And what would happen if I need to combat somebody if I'm out and about doing my own thing? So I need this. So I thought like, okay, I need to protect myself. Well, why not protect myself and learn from a professional that has been doing it for years from right here? It was right there at my, it was the Golden Corral was right there. The buffet was right there. Everything that I needed. So that's why I came to be an executive protection specialist as well as being versed in martial arts. So Dr. Holyfield, I thank you for just having Failings Training Academy. Let's talk about this seminar, September 18th, and what makes it so unique.
Well, again, what makes it unique is part of what makes it very unique is what you're looking at on your screen right now, and bringing these great, authentic, real world, old school brand masters to the seminar again. And there's going to be other masters and grandmasters there. So you're looking at over 200 years of knowledge that you're going to be around. Where this is a no nonsense, to the point seminar. We're going to teach you what works, what doesn't work. We're going to teach you the philosophy behind it. We're going to give you the medical analysis of it. And these guys are bringing their A game. So when you come to this seminar, you're going to get real world techniques that are geared towards modern day threats, whether that's an attack against a punch attack, weapon attack, gun attack, knife attack, what have you. Right. And we're going to give you some philosophy behind that as well. Okay. This right here is powerful. Okay. The mind is very, very powerful. If you can avoid a confrontation, that's the best defense. If you can avoid it altogether. But if you have to engage, you're not going to straddle any fences, and you have to engage, then you got to go all in. And that's always been my philosophy. A fight situation, in my opinion, should not take any longer than 5 to 10 seconds. You get in, you get out, you handle your business. I'm 61 years old. A lot of these guys were around in the same age. I don't have time to, and in being in executive protection, if I'm protecting a client, I don't have time to be dancing around fighting a guy while my client is standing there. I don't have that time. All right. If we're under attack and it's a multiple attack situation, the first person that comes in on us, he can cancel Christmas. It's a wrap. Disparity of force, unequal. I can use a lethal force. If I can't get to my firearm in time, because I'm a gunner too. I like to run and gun. If I can't do that in time and we have to engage, cancel Christmas, a wrap. Okay. But that's the only way. That's, as a former chief combative instructor for the United States Army between 87 and 97 and training all these guys, I had to keep it real because these guys are going into combat. There's no time for any of this Hollywood fluff and this, that, and the other. It had to be real world. That's what you're going to learn when you come to this seminar.
And Dr. Holyfield and all the other grandmasters, I know you guys are well versed in the history of martial arts. Give us a little bit of history on martial arts, because a lot of people, they see Kung Fu, they see Bruce Lee, and they think that's it, but that's not really where it came from. Tell us about the history of martial arts.
Well, I'll give so real small is that when they look to the skies, when all of our native natural born people around the planet, when they look to the skies, look to the planets, look to the earth, look to the planets, look to the animals, there was a sense of balance, right? How do they balance all things underneath the stars? That's where the martial arts originally kind of starts from. What is the balance of nature and how to apply that internally and externally? I'll do, that's my piece. And I'll let Dr. Taylor move on from there. What do you got, Dr. Taylor?
And we're, actually, martial art, we were actually born as a martial artist. We was in our mother womb, we was kicking. You know, I feel like it created right then and there.
I like that.
You know,
You're right.
you know, that way I felt like it created right from there, you know, from my mother's womb, you know. I mean, we was born kickers. So a lot of people say, hey, you know, they can't do martial arts. You know, I tell them, that's what I always tell them. I said, you was kicking, man, before you was, you know, came into this world. You know, so we, you know, I feel like that, you know, as coming up into the martial art world, you know, and that we all have to be able to have some sense of humor and realize that, well, old or young, if you can raise your hand or you can do this, you know, whatever, you can move your body, whether you learn 5 technique, 2 technique, 1 technique, 3 technique, you know, that we all could be a martial artist and do martial arts. We all have martial arts in us. We just have to open up that key there, the door.
Yeah, and I like to add on to that, Dr. Taylor. I think throughout antiquity, man always have tried to impose his will on another man. You know, and it doesn't matter whether it was fighting over a fig leaf or a fruit, and whatever they did, and if it worked, they may go back and try to replicate it again and make it work again. And then sometimes they would even look at maybe animals and stuff like that, or either they would look at certain things that they did, maybe on war path between tribes, and replicate that feat that they did again and make it work. After a while, then systems come about. Systems come about, probably systems didn't come about not until a lot later. And when these systems came about.
He just muted himself.
And you know, I myself, I do a lot of studying right now. I watch the baboons, I watch monkeys, I look at the lions, how they fight, you know, because of the Shaolin Kung Fu and the Kung Fu system and all that, you know, they based on the animals as well as Kempo. And you learn a lot, you know, people don't understand, you know, looking at the birds, how they actually flap their wings and stuff, you know, these become strikes, you know, you're using your fingertips and stuff. See, a lot of people don't understand. You can learn a lot just by watching these animals. Really, a lot of originated from the animals. You know, it's very deep. Martial arts are very, very deep thing.
Now, before we close, for the parents, I have a lot of parents and people that are on my line that have kids. What are some of the things that they should look for when seeking a martial arts school for their children?
Ask you. Really, they need to contact you because you have connections to so many beautiful brothers and sisters. Like, I got some people that can check out their school. That's as simple as that. Ask someone that knows, and then ask them to check it out. I call dojos all the time around the country for people I meet. They're like, I know someone who lives in San Antonio. What's a good school down there? Hey, I got people down there. All right, we're part of San Antonio. I'll call them. If you can get to them. These other places, I don't know them. You know, as instructors, we travel around the world a lot. We travel around the United States a lot. I run into some good brothers and sisters, right? And I have no problem when I connect my heart to their heart. I'd be like, go see this person or her or them. I have no problem with that. The others, like I said, I'm ready to close doors and pull down shades and shut it down. So ask.
You know, I want to.
Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Dr. Dry. Go ahead.
No. So a lot of the parents that know you, Tracy, they should ask you.
Okay, thank you.
I want to add to Dr. Dyer on that, and that's a very important point that you bring up, especially for the parents that are looking for good schools for their kids. When I go into a dojo, and I'll tell this to parents, if I step into any dojo, I don't need to meet the instructor. I don't need to see the instructor right now. I'm going to look at those students.
Yep.
Because oftentimes the student will try to emulate the instructor. So when I walk in, I want to see how the students conduct themselves. I want to see how they wear their uniform. I want to see how their obi is tied. Is their belt tied correctly? Is it hanging all off the uniform? If I call a student to come over to me, how are they going to approach me and address me? Are they going to come up? Are they going to stand in that position? Yes, sir. You can learn a lot about an instructor without even meeting the instructor through the students. You see what I'm saying? I just need to see the student. And if the students are squared away, that's going to give me a good indication that the instructor is squared away. Back in the day, if you walked in my school, I had a military flavor to my school. My students, my kids would come to class. Their uniform had to be clean, it had to be pressed or ironed. I needed to see a crease down the arm and down the pants. Why? Because I'm establishing that pay attention to detail. When you take your shoes off before you enter the mat, you take your shoes off, you bow to pay your respects, you walk over to the wall, you take your little tennis shoes and you put them against the wall. You take your tennis shoes and you put them against the wall where the back of those heels right there, or the toes are against the wall, the backs of the heels are out there, and I want a straight line. I want the shoestrings tucked in and I want them dressed right pressed. Why? Because I want that attention to detail, to the point where I would kneel down at the shoe line and take a yardstick and measure, just so they could see how serious I was about this. Now, what did that do? They made sure that shoe line was so straight, you couldn't help but notice it. In ranks inspection, just like in the military, okay? That right there conditioned them. Now, what did they do with that? They took that home and they did the same thing. They would put their clothes away. They would put their toys away. They would put their little shoes in the corner like that. You understand what I'm saying? They would address their parents with yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Very rarely did I have my students address me as sensei. Yes, sir, yes, ma'am. Why? Because I wanted to instill that in the kid. Today, if a child walks up to me in Walmart and I talk to a child and he says, yes, sir, that's almost a shocker, because you don't see that in kids. Yes, sir, yes, ma'am. You don't see that. You don't see it. That type of respect.
What up? What up?
Yeah, you don't see that. Yes,
Right,
sir.
that's what you hear. What up? Yeah.
See, this was old school. And the other masters here can attest to that, because that's the way we trained our students. And they grew up with that. And the parents loved it, because they said, wow, this isn't a daycare center like the other school. They're learning something and they're bringing it home. You know, and it was changing lives. So I'm very passionate when it comes to talking about kids, because I was one of those kids when I started, and it conditioned me to be the man that I am today. It helped to create the man that you see here today. And that was all through the martial arts and how I was trained.
You know, and I do want to talk to the parents that are listening, that will listen, that will share to listen. When we talk about self-esteem, self-awareness, they're the same. And I'll re-emphasize this. I understand that parents have a hard time cultivating children. We can train a child, but to cultivate a child means to help grow, right? And to help grow, we have a lot of times that we are not developing the brain wholly and completely. And that's where the sickness comes in today with trauma. Now, what about the family of the child that lives in a poor tenement? Maybe that's my old age talking to me, or the bad neighborhood, right? You can still cultivate the child with love and compassion and care in their mind. You know, the tenement is the environment. The mind is what holds it. You can free yourself from the enslavement of the bad neighborhood if you free your mind with love, compassion, and care. Because once you care and have compassion, now you have love of self. Now you're going to strive for love of self.
And love of others too.
We had lost Dr. Hines. He had dropped off. And Dr. Hines, do you want to add to this? We're talking about training children and the benefits of good martial arts training to kids.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I do believe that martial arts is really good for kids. I think that the whole concept of attention, being able to focus on things, as I mentioned earlier, for me, I rationalized early on that if I can actually go through the Tegu system or the Pyong system of a form, or if I can learn a kata or a shikudu or whatever, and learning how to go through those biomechanics, why can't I actually use that to discipline anything else that I do? Along with that, of course, it's going to basically be driven by the household. And earlier on, I I did catch someone, I forgot who it was, that they mentioned about the family. Family is
Gigi.
really important to teach that.
I'm on a live thing here. You and Will just killing me.
Yeah, it's really important because the thing
No.
is, you want to make sure that as these kids
I will call you
grow
back
up,
in a little bit. I
that
gotta
they
get back
grow
on.
up and they become highly respectful and humble of their learning and have ideas where that learning is going to. So that this way, as you mentioned, Dr. Holyfield, you won't be in Walmart and somebody say, "What's up, Doc?" and saying stuff like that. My kids will never do that.
Right.
My kids, they have a Caribbean influence anyway, and it just wasn't done like that back in the days of my wife. And so the thing about it is that they're not going to be that way. And you know, even though I'm an American, I adopted that way because even though I thought certain aspects of discipline was really good, I think karate or martial arts in general reinforces that. And I think it reinforces the whole goal of being able to be a good person growing up, trying to do only the things that make you the best to be. And so if you're growing up and you realize that decision making, that this is going to get you here versus going there, going the wrong direction. Well, you can learn that actually in terms of just doing a form or something like, oh, that's not right, or this isn't right, or either if you're throwing a kick, or either you're kicking a bag. And for women, for females, for little girls, it's extremely important. I have daughters, and believe me, the concept of martial arts is pretty much what they were raised on. And it basically bodes very well with them in terms of teaching them how to become not only good individuals, good people, or good seekers of information in life so they can leverage it to help others, but also help them help strengthen their core as they go out into the world and have to deal with this overarching patriarchal society.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think a good instructor turns data into information, information into knowledge, and knowledge into wisdom. You know, so again, it comes down to the instructor. The instructor is the key, but it's up to the student to turn the key, open the door, and walk through.
True. And if I may add to that, Dr. Holyfield, a lot of times, like when the instructor is turning the key, sometimes individualism is really important because I know a lot of times Dr. Dyer, I think you mentioned McDojo. I like that term right there.
Yeah, I like that.
A lot of McDojos out there where people are just massively producing people. Sometimes you need that individualism. You need to come down from the abstract to the concrete to an individual, and sometimes find out exactly what are the specific needs of that individual in terms of helping them. And I don't know if Ken is on this call, but I know Ken is probably going to benefit from this, just listening to that, because he actually works for Police Pal out in Oklahoma. And a lot of times, kids need that. They need individual needs a lot of times. And even with the martial arts can basically be fine-tuned just to basically satisfy what those needs are. But it's all about the instructor. Usually when I walk in, the first thing into a dojo, the first thing I do is look at the instructor. I could tell basically who is a good instructor. I could tell just by their aura. It won't take me no more than maybe about 10 to 15 seconds. Maybe even less than that.
Wow.
Hey, I hear you.
Well, as we get ready to end this broadcast here, I want you guys, this is Positive Vibes. I want you to leave a positive vibe about what you do, about martial arts, and how we can see our children moving in the right direction in the future. I'm looking for a switch in the children's attitudes, their minds, and how they interact with each other.
My real quick thing is that I want you to get taught. Get taught, then practice, and then train and practice some more. I don't know any other way for you to do something well without being taught, and then without practicing, and then without training. Practice means take what the things was taught to you, work it out. Now training means to do it on your own, so then you can go back to who taught you and practice it again. So get taught, practice, train, practice, please. Even that with math, do math over and over. Even if you get the answers right, just keep doing it so you practice on getting it right.
Exactly.
Awesome. Dr. Hines, what's a positive note from you with positive advice regarding martial arts?
Yeah, well, I agree with Dr. Dyer. I think that it's something that as we actually teach and as we actually do, we have to continue to practice it. And it's as I mentioned earlier, for me, it's a way of life. And if folks pursue it as that, and it's kind of hard sometimes because, first of all, people have to learn what it's about. If they don't know what it's about, it's kind of hard for them to leverage it as a way of life. But as folks start to learn and they learn that it becomes a way of life, as you continue to practice, you would basically reap the rewards of being able to have all of those virtues, such as self-assurance, self-awareness, self-ability, self-sustainment, and oh, by the way, self-defense too, if needed. But the most important thing is those other ones, those other attributes that I mentioned earlier. But I do believe that, and I feel that I'm a product of that myself. That if a person really leverage the martial arts and make it a lifestyle, they will inherit the win.
Awesome. And Dr. Holyfield?
Inspiration and aspiration is only as good as the perspiration that follows it.
Woo!
Awesome for you.
I think preachers proclaim while teachers explain. So again, link yourself up with a good instructor. Come to the Close Quarter Combat Seminar in September and let us teach.
And in September, on September 8th, it's 9 to 5. So, you know, the information, the website is scrolling below. Come and be prepared to learn.
Right, September 18th, Saturday, September 18th, 2021, from 9 to 5. And go to the website, phalanxta.com, click on Close Quarter Combat for all of the details of the seminar.
Awesome.
Look forward to seeing you.
Thank you so much for being a part of Positive Vibes. It's definitely a positive one. You know, there wasn't any flashy things going on. So hopefully I'll get this out to you guys and get you a link so you can share this on all your social media platforms. You know, you always are welcome to come back and be a part of Positive Vibes at any time. Thank you, Dr. Dyer, Grandmaster Dr. Dyer, Grandmaster Dr. Hind, Dr. Holyfield. I salute you guys. Thank you for all that you do. And I look forward to September 18th. I'm ready to go now.
And our brother Dr. Taylor, he dropped off again. But again, all of the Grandmasters will be there. And we look forward to working with you. Thank you for having us, Tracy.
Thank you so much.